The Longhorns have been hard at work during their 7-on-7 practices. What is Quinn doing to improve his on-field leadership? How are the defensive backs looking? And which two recruits are must-wins? Eric Nalin, owner of Inside Texas, is back to give us the scoop on the latest team intel. Inside Texas is a must-have for any diehard Longhorn fan that wants to stay in the know. Subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Link in the description. What can we learn from summer 7-on-7 before fall camp begins? Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, Eric, and you have some team intel from the latest 7-on-7. Quinn is taking that next step commanding the offense, so what's the latest on him as he develops into the leader we need?
Yeah, I mean, we've been covering his growth throughout the entire offseason. First, he started seeing change in his body. You could see he lost weight before the Alamo Bowl, and that was kind of like the thing that really led us down this road to understanding that he really is, doing all the right things, not just some of the right things to become a better leader. The last page of that is, becoming more of a vocal leader. He's been doing the right things. That's going to earn you credibility with your teammates, but now it's time to become a little more vocal. And during the practice this week, I think it really was probably the first time it really came to our attention in a major way was they were struggling quite a bit on offense in 7-on-7 versus the defense. And Quinn felt like the offense wasn't on the same page. He pulled him aside and got into him a little bit. Now he's still growing into this role. It's not like he went on some General Patton pacing back and forth with the American flag behind him, lighting into him. But he was, he got a little animated. He's very direct. And he said they need to get in their playbooks better. He said, if they don't improve, they're going to just be another 8-4 team all over again. They said, they really need to dedicate themselves because this could be the season that changes their lives and changes the program for a very long time. He said, quit paying attention to Twitter. We got to get to work. And, I wanted to get that out there because I had a feeling that we were going to start hearing more about that at Big 12 Media Days. And, that's pretty much what happened. So, it's just another step in the maturation. I think fans have to remember that, he's developing in all facets. That goes for his mechanics as well. And just as he's not a finished product as a vocal leader, he's not a finished product mechanically, but he's trending in the right direction. I think optimism on him is warranted. Now, again, he's still going to make some mistakes. He's not going to be perfect. We're probably never going to see him at his best. I think that's going to be reserved for whatever team drafts him, because he's got such tools. They can draft him early. But, the maturation, we're going to see that this season, I'm pretty sure.
Speaking of the NFL, we've seen some early comps where he goes in the first round, and Sarkisian at Big 12 Media Day says he should be a first rounder as well. If Quinn doesn't end up in the early first round up against quarterbacks like Caleb Williams and Drake May, do you think there's any chance that he returns and jumbles up our QB pipeline with Malik and Arch?
I like Sark kind of tackling that head on at media days. He didn't shy away from it. I think the expectations are that Quinn has a good enough season that he does go pro. But, that could go, that doesn't mean he has to light it up. First of all, he could get drafted based on traits, just the arm. Everybody talks about the golden arm. So that's going to have teams interested. And NFL teams do tend to overdraft quarterbacks. But even if Quinn was going to go in the late first, sometimes that's a better situation. A lot of times you're going to a better team, a team that's got better supporting cast, and maybe that's the better situation for him overall. I lean towards this being his last season. I do think that's going to be the case. I'm not certain of it. I don't have great confidence on it. I call it 60-40 at this point. But, if he goes and lights up Alabama again, at least like he was on pace to do, kind of springboards into the rest of the season, I think it could be pretty obvious by, mid-September, late September that he's going to leave. He's just done all the right things. That was my big question last November. Is he going to take the next steps? And he answered that resoundingly yes.
Good stuff. And then you said the offense had their struggles in that practice and the secondary was doing well against the receivers. The DB should be a major strength for us this season. So what's the latest you're hearing about the defensive backfield?
Yeah. Well, let's keep in mind that was just 7-on-7, and my main takeaway was what we got about it from Quinn. But yeah, so it seems like kind of a contradiction that he's showing all this growth, but then the offense is struggling. But keep in mind, it's 7-on-7. There's no pass rush. The defense knows what's coming. But really, the way they stymied the offense is that they were just very sticky in coverage. We know the wide receivers are good. Sometimes zero sum could lead you a foul. But here we know the wide receivers are good, and we have a good indication that the corners are good as well. We watched them last year. They definitely grew as a group. It's just a lot of good on good. And some days the defense has their day. Sometimes it's the defense. Today it was the defense, or that day it was the defense. Names I heard were, I always hear Malik Muhammad, it seems like. But Austin Jordan had a really good day at nickel. Very tough position to play, but he was running downfield. Slot fade is one of the more difficult routes to cover. Again, he doesn't have to pay attention to the run, so he's got a little bit of a head start there, but he looked good. Another bit of information is true freshman Warren Roberson working at corner. That just tells you how talented he is. He's probably going to end up being a nickel long term, maybe even a safety. But the fact that they can even try him at corner tells you quite a bit about him. But yeah, the secondary's in good shape. But we'll see. That was just one practice. We've got a lot more to cover. Practice hasn't even really started for real. But my main takeaway from that day was Quinn. To me, that final step is vocal leadership. Really, the final step is proving it on the field, and then it's all going to come to a boil. But he's done everything he can to lead the team.
And because fall camp hasn't started yet, we haven't seen a lot of reps since spring. We have one position that isn't for sure. So do you know who's in the lead on that field corner spot?
Well, we know Watts is going to do the boundary, and then they're just going to find the next best corner is going to be the field. Jade is going to be star, obviously. Jade is probably the best corner on the team. Jade could play field, boundary, star. It doesn't matter. I mean, that guy is a stud. But that's another reminder. Hey, they want a corner there. So anytime you hear people fantasizing about Jelani McDonald being 6'3", 215 there, that's probably not the most likely outcome. Field corner is going to come down to Gavin Holmes, Malik Muhammad, and Terrence Brooks. And, it's hard to know who's going to win. The interesting thing at corners, they rotate them pretty frequently. There's a lot of running involved at that position. So when you have 4 good ones, team sources will tell you have 6 good ones. They have 6 guys that can play. Then, they're in good hands. I don't know who's going to win that corner spot. It could be Malik Muhammad. I'm not saying it will be, but don't be entirely surprised if it does. I mean, be surprised because he's going up against good players, but we are hearing it. So in some ways, it's not a surprise.
That's wild if Muhammad can land the starting gig as a true freshman with so much competition in that room. And recruiting is still a key during this time of year. In your opinion, with the guys left on the board, who are the 2 most important key pieces we still have to land?
Yeah, the key pieces to a class, whenever you try to, figure that out, need has to factor, need and talent. And so, Colin Simmons plays the need position and he's a freak athlete. I think he's Will Anderson all over again. So obviously he's the number one. He's at Duncanville. It's really is one of the biggest recruitments of the decade. Not this decade, the last 15 years or so. So we'll see if Texas can win that one. I tend to think he's going to take a visit or 2 at the end of July. Yeah, LSU is probably more likely than A&M at this point, but I think he's probably scheduled for both at this point. We'll see how it plays out. I think if you talk to anybody covering that one that has Texas information, they would probably lean towards LSU being a bigger threat than A&M. But you never know in this era, and A&M's pulled some pretty big wins in the last few years. The other big one I have, and a lot of people probably don't because the rating isn't all that great, but DeAndre Robinson. Again, this boils down to need. They need a big nose tackle. I like him as more than a nose tackle. I think he can play defensive tackle. Another kid out of Orlando. All of a sudden, if they land him, they've got 3 guys from Orlando in the last 2 years with Cedric Baxter and Peyton Kirkland. And these are really good players. He's a big guy, moves his feet, athletic. And another factor that I like about him is I think he can play pretty early. And if you look at Texas depth chart, it's going to thin pretty in a frightening fashion if Alfred Collins goes pro next year. Byron Murphy, there's even a chance he goes pro next year. And obviously they're losing Tavondre Sweat. So, when you talk about the biggest recruitments, you have to factor for need, and immediacy factors into that big time. So, DeAndre Robinson, I think Texas leads. We got RPM in for him on the July 3rd. He announces on the 20th, moved his announcement up a date. Right now, the pick is Texas, and that's one. Don't look at the rankings. Look at the tape. Look at the need, and if Texas gets them, that's one to celebrate.
Hopefully, we can secure those guys. And we have some recruiting dominoes falling, and fall camp is right around the corner. So let the viewers know where they can get the latest coming out of camp, and keep an eye on these recruitments.
Yeah, Big 12 Media Days are behind us. That's kind of usually the gateway into the season. Recruiting is picking up at the same time, so there's no better time to come check out InsideTexas.com, the most comprehensive coverage in the entire Longhorn ecosystem.
And that's a wrap on Eric Nahlin. Head over to Inside Texas and sign up today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook on.